The Lives of the Saints by Father Alban Butler, December 16th. Blessed Mary Fontanella. In the 17th century, John Donato Fontanella, who was Count of Sant'Enna, lived in Turin. He was a pious and kind man, married to a no less good woman, Maria Tana, whose father was a first cousin of Saint Aloysius Gonzaga. The couple had 11 children. Mariana, the ninth, was particularly intelligent. At the age of 6, following the example of Saint Teresa, she planned with her little brother to run away from home and go to live in the desert. But the project failed because the children fell asleep on the day they were to leave. 2 years later, while recovering from a serious illness, Mariana had her first vision. From then on, she became more and more inclined to asceticism, and the following year she made her first communion. The contemplation of the Passion scene, in which the servant of Caiaphas slaps the Lord, impressed her deeply. A very strange incident is related in this regard. One afternoon when Mariana was kneeling at the blessing of the Blessed Sacrament with one of her sisters, a man standing next to her suddenly turned to her and slapped her. The man took advantage of the confusion to flee, and no one saw him again. At about the age of 12, Mariana, in agreement with the Cistercians of Saluzzo, used a mischievous trick to overcome her mother's resistance and go as a pupil to the convent. But she was not very happy there, and when her father died, she returned home to accompany her mother. As she felt more and more called to religious life, she entered in 1676 in the Carmel of Santa Cristina after overcoming the opposition of her family. At the beginning, she missed it very much, and to her regret was added a great weariness for her new way of life and a deep antipathy for the Mistress of Novices. Nevertheless, she persevered in her vocation and made her profession, where she took the name Maria de los Ángeles. 7 years after her entrance into the convent, God visited her with the bitter trial of the dark night, accompanied by a series of temptations and diabolical assaults. Lorenzo Maria, OCD. After 3 years, Maria entered a period of greater peace and began to scale the heights of contemplation. In 1690, she gave Father Lawrence an account of the mystical experience that had marked the period of trial. The corporal penances that the Blessed performed prove that she was of a vehement temperament. At one time, she used to discipline herself daily. She used to clamp her tongue with a ring, pour melted wax on her skin, and went so far as to suspend herself with ropes from a beam of her cell, as if she were crucified. About these practices, let us quote the words of her biographer, Father George O'Neill, S.J. "No one is called to imitate them, and no one is obliged to admire them." At the age of 30, Maria de los Ángeles was appointed Mistress of Novices and 3 years later, Superior. She accepted both positions with reluctance and carried them out with extraordinary skill. On the advice of Blessed Sebastian Valfrey, she undertook a new foundation in a small and poorly endowed house. In 1703, having overcome the opposition of the ecclesiastical and civil authorities, he succeeded in forming the nucleus of the new community. The convent still exists today. The Blessed would have liked to move to the new convent, but the people of Turin prevented her from doing so, since from the members of the ducal house of Savoy to the last of the inhabitants, all were accustomed to seek advice and prayers from the superior of St. Christine, especially during the war with the French. In the last 30 years of her life, Mother Mary had a series of mystical experiences and gifts, among which was the odor of sanctity in the literal sense. In fact, a scent emanated from her person that was transferred to her clothes and even to the objects she touched. It was so penetrating that it lasted for a long time. This phenomenon existed without interruption since 1702. One of those who testified to it was Father Costanzo, who was later Archbishop of Sassari in Sardinia. Father Costanzo stated that it was neither natural nor artificial, nor did it resemble the perfume of flowers or of aromatic drugs or of chemical aromas. It was truly odor of sanctity. Reportedly, certain relics of the blessed still retain the scent. Like so many other mystics, Blessed Mary had a great practical sense, something very useful in her position as superior, for she had to keep accounts, watch over the workers, etc. In 1717, the nuns of Santa Cristina wanted to elect her to the office of superior for the 5th time, but the Blessed claimed that her state of health would prevent her from setting an example of observance, and she appealed to the provincial and her confessor, but both refused to intervene in the election. Then Mother Mary of the Angels asked God if it was His will to call her soon to enjoy Him. 3 weeks later, she was seriously ill. The The Blessed had been so obedient during her life that her sisters wanted her health to be restored by obedience. The superiors refused, and Mother Mary of the Angels commented, "Obedience commands what God wants. Therefore, I always want what obedience wants. If the impossible were possible, I would do what you desire. But I have insisted so much before the heart of Jesus that finally he has listened to me and gives me what I asked of him. It is no longer time to change." She immediately blessed all her sisters. Father Constanzo asked her to bless another daughter, without telling her who it was. It was the young princess of Carignano, who had rushed to the convent when she heard that Mother Maria degli Angeli was dying. The Blessed said, "May the Lord bless her and detach her from the world, for everything is coming to an end." Mother Mary of the Angels died on December 16, 1717. 7 years later, her cause was introduced at the request of Amadeo II of Savoy. The beatification took place in 1865.